Welcome back to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're diving back into the world of Cole Porter, such an iconic songwriter.
Absolutely. One of the greats of the 20th century.
So we've been digging through a lot of material on Porter's life, his work, and something that just keeps jumping out is, well, how he blended these surprising global sounds into his music. Which feels so American, right?
Right. It's distinctly his sound, but with these layers.
Exactly. So today we want to really unpack how he used what he called the exotic. That's his term. And then we need to tackle this really fascinating claim from another Broadway legend about Porter's supposed secret for writing hit songs.
Yeah, that story's something else. But starting with the exotic, what's so interesting, and our source points this out, is that his use of these elements, sounds from all over the globe or even closer to home, it wasn't really about being strictly authentic.
Okay. Not authentic.
No, not in an ethnographic sense.
Yeah.
He was aiming for something more evocative, using these different sounds almost like metaphors.
Metaphors for what?
For that universal human thing, love, passion, the stuff that's often hard to pin down.
Okay, I see. So less about geography, more about feeling. Let's explore that. Our mission today is kind of figure out how his musical borrowing revealed deeper things about his characters, maybe even about Porter himself, and show you why the music still hits home today.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's start with a big one. What is this thing called Love from 1929? We all know the tune, but our source material. It sheds some surprising light on where it came from, doesn't it?
It really does. Porter himself claimed the inspiration came from Marrakesh.
Marrakesh, wow.
Yeah, he said he heard these ritual drumming patterns there. And if you look at the original sheet music, the piano part, it actually has this simple kind of drum-like pattern, an umca ostinato, they call it.
Like a pulse.
Exactly, a repetitive pulse. And then there was this early recording, 1929, by Leslie Hutchinson. It took it even further. Started with 4 big strikes on a Chinese gong, then launched into this quote-unquote African drum beat.
A gong and an African drum beat. And Moroccan inspiration. That's quite a mix already.
And it didn't stop there. The stage show, Wake Up and Dream, where the song debuted.
Right, right.
The dance sequence for it, choreographed by George Balanchine, no less.
Balanchine, okay.
And it had dancers moving to this insistent tom-tom beat, circling a statue that looked like an African idol. And the sheet music cover itself, well, that was a whole other level of collage.
Oh, yeah. What was on it?
You had a commedia dell'arte figure, a flapper, and this modernist take on Hokusai's famous wave painting, Under the Wave off Kanagawa.
Wow. So, Italian comedy, 1920s America, Japan. All for a song inspired by Morocco.
It's a complete cultural mashup, and it really highlights Porter's whole approach. For him, the mystery of love, how inexplicable it feels, that was connected to the idea of these faraway, wondrous places.
Makes sense.
So all through his career, he'd pull in sounds he thought of as exotic, specific instruments, rhythms, dances, but always as metaphors for love's power, how it transforms you, how unpredictable it is.
So he's drawing on his travels, his musical training, but not trying to be a musicologist.
Exactly. Never aiming for that sort of ethnographic purity. His versions were meant to sound familiar, or at least evocative, to American ears right away. Fit right into popular music.
He even joked about it, didn't he? Our source mentioned something about mambos in the 50s.
Oh, right. Yeah, he quipped about expecting someone to write the waltz mambo next because, as he put it, people write songs in any tempo and call them mambos. So he was definitely aware of how loose these borrowings could be.
He knew his own game.
Precisely. And often, this exotic thing, this thing you dream about from far away, maybe only experience on a rare trip, it stood in for a kind of true love that felt passionately desired, but maybe ultimately out of reach. Our source even suggests this might connect back to Porter's own life. Being a gay man married to a woman in that era, early to mid-20th century America, maybe that passionate, true connection felt elusive at home.
That adds a whole other layer.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about how he used these sounds to show inner feelings that maybe couldn't be expressed outwardly.
Yeah, the music and lyrics often work together that way. They invoke these exotic sounds to hint at feelings simmering beneath the surface until they just burst out.
Like in Night and Day.
Perfect example.
Oh.
The beat, beat, beat of the tom-tom when the jungle's shadows fall. It's not literal drumming, it's a simile. It's like the hungry yearning burning inside of me.
Okay, the jungle beat is the yearning.
Exactly. And then there's the gypsy in me, often sung by characters who seem kind of naive or buttoned up at first.
Right.
But then they confess, I can't wait to get the stage all set so I can let the gypsy in me out. The gypsy here is this symbol of pent-up passion, ready to break free on some magical night, accompanied by a tinkling guitar.
So the exotic location or sound becomes a symbol for an internal state, a hidden self almost.
That's a great way to put it. Our source argues it goes beyond just stereotypes. These references help create a more complex character, showing that difference between how someone acts on the outside and what they feel deep down.
Interesting.
Yeah, these elements, which she very deliberately mixes in, like that musical collage idea, they become signs of individuality, what makes someone unique, even when society pushes them to conform.
Like Terry Castle said, his talent was making others human.
Exactly. Allowing performers to sound more fully alive, as Castle put it. His songs gave them a way to show that tension between the inner self and the outer persona.
Okay, talking about layers, let's really dig into Begin the Beguine, another huge Porter song. How does that fit into this exoticism and hidden passion theme?
Oh, Begin the Beguine is a masterclass in this. It uses all sorts of eclectic musical ideas to paint love as this powerful, mysterious force.
Where did the inspiration come from this time?
Well, Porter's story is fascinating. He said the rhythm came from dancers he saw in Martinique, in a Paris nightclub back in the 1920s.
Martinique. Okay.
But the melody. He claimed that came from a dance he saw 10 years later in Calabahi, Indonesia.
Whoa. Martinique and Indonesia. How did he put those together?
He apparently just said, for some reason, the melody that I heard and the phrase I had written down seemed to marry. Just like that.
That's incredible. Talk about international. And our source notes that the actual Martinique Beguine dance rhythm, which has West African roots itself. Porter's music doesn't copy it exactly.
No, it suggests it. You get these constant offbeat chords, syncopation, those little rhythmic surprises. It creates this feeling of primitive simplicity, as the source puts it, especially with that repeating left-hand pattern, the ostinato.
And the lyrics tell a story, right?
Yeah.
About memory and lost love.
Absolutely. It's all about nostalgia for this incredibly passionate affair that's over. The singers wrestling with whether it's better to remember or forget. Hearing the Beguine triggers this vivid memory, a memory evergreen, of a tropical night, stars, being with someone. But then the music shifts, gets darker into a minor key, acknowledging it's gone. Except when that tune clutches my heart. Yeah.
So the singer struggles. First, it's like, please don't play that song. So don't let them begin the Beguine. But by the end, they embrace the memory. It's painful, but maybe worth it. Oh yes, let them begin the Beguine. Till you whisper to me once more, darling, I love you. The music itself becomes this symbol of love's enduring power, even in memory.
Such a journey in one song. And it clearly resonated because so many different artists covered it.
Oh, hugely. Across all sorts of genres, jazz, disco, even opera singers took it on.
So how did they interpret Porter's vision?
Well, you had Xavier Cugat, the band leader.
Right, the rumba king.
Exactly. He did one of the first recordings in 1935, basically turned it into a rumba, full of percussion. Then Artie Shaw, the clarinetist, he went for a straight-up swing version, apparently rejecting a more traditional Martinican arrangement, someone suggested.
Bing Crosby's recording used that trisilo rhythm you hear a lot in Latin music, Ella Fitzgerald's swing version. Her arranger even wrote Charleston in the drum part near the end, but then added this syncopated vamp that still kind of nodded to the Caribbean feel. Everyone found their own way into Porter's high-grid creation.
And it showed up in the movies about Porter's life, too, right? Giving filmmakers a visual angle.
Definitely. In Night and Day, the 1946 biopic, they show him supposedly writing it during World War I, hearing battle sounds mixed with drums from African soldiers.
Wow, okay.
Later, after he's injured, he's listening on the phone to Carlos Ramirez, singing it on this lush, tropical set, dancers, shirtless drummers, the works. It's like a visual flashback, a memory evergreen that makes him smile.
And De Lovely, the 2004 film, had a different take.
Totally different mood. Sheryl Crow sings it really slow, mostly minor key, with a kind of bossa nova feel. And crucially, she leaves out that final uplifting verse. She just ends with that desperate plea, so don't let them begin the Beguine. Yeah, it really hammers home the idea that you can't go back to that past happiness. It plays over scenes of Porter watching his marriage fall apart. Very different interpretation.
But the most elaborate version, according to our source, was in a different movie entirely. Broadway Melody of 1940.
Oh, that one sounds incredible. A total spectacle.
What happened in that one?
It started by mashing up two classic exotic settings, a Turkish harem and a tropical island, complete with sensual dancers. Pure fantasy.
Okay.
Then bam, it shifts gears completely. The music and dancing suddenly evoke Spain, specifically flamenco. Eleanor Powell does this powerful tap routine, kind of like a bolero rhythm, and Fred Astaire comes in dressed as a bullfighter.
Astaire is a bullfighter? Tapping?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And the orchestra goes into this dramatic Spanish-style minor key, lots of chromaticism, those sliding harp sounds.
Wild. And then, didn't it shift again? Back to America.
You got it. The final section brings them back metaphorically to Tin Pan Alley. It becomes this upbeat, urban, jazzy thing. You hear a hi-hat cymbal, big brass sounds. The music maids sing in close harmony. They even scat.
Scat singing in Begin the Beguine.
Yep. And they apparently even slip the line in the Merry Land of Oz into the lyrics where it says, Night of Tropical Splendor.
Seriously. Oz.
Seriously. It basically turned the whole song into this metaphor for pure Hollywood fantasy, resolving all the tension from the movie's plot. It's maybe the ultimate example of Porter's musical collage idea in action.
That is quite something. Okay, let's shift gears now to that other intriguing part, the Jewish tunes claim. Our source kicks us off with a story from Richard Rogers. Met Porter in Venice, 1926. What was this big secret Porter supposedly shared?
Right, this is a famous anecdote. Rogers recounts Porter telling him, sort of conspiratorially, that he'd finally discovered the secret of writing hits.
Okay.
Rogers said he was leaning in, waiting for the magic formula, and Porter whispers, I'll write Jewish tunes.
Jewish tunes, Porter said that.
That's what Rogers claimed. He said he laughed at first, thought Porter was kidding, but later, Rogers became convinced he was dead serious.
Wow. Did Rogers think Porter actually did write Jewish tunes?
He did. He specifically named songs like Night and Day, Begin the Beguine, Love for Sale, My Heart Belongs to Daddy, and I Love Paris. Rogers claimed their melodies, especially being in minor keys, were unmistakably Eastern Mediterranean.
Huh. But does Porter's work actually have many explicit Jewish references? Our source seems skeptical about that part.
Yeah, that's the thing. There really aren't that many. It makes the idea that he was primarily writing Jewish songs seem, well, far-fetched, as our source puts it.
Were there any examples?
A couple of minor ones. There was a song called Hot House Rose from 1927, written for Fanny Brice. It was about her early life assimilation themes, but she never actually performed it.
Okay.
And he used some arguably Jewish-sounding meanings like zilch or Finkelstein in one song, I Am Gaston, and another song, Midsummer Night, mentions Yom Kippur Night, but it's pretty sparse overall.
What about My Heart Belongs to Daddy? That one comes up specifically in the material regarding its musical patterns.
Right, that famous phrase, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, the repetitive melody, the way it turns, and the use of augmented seconds. Those intervals that can sound a bit exotic or tense.
Yeah.
Some scholars, like Jack Gottlieb, pointed out that those techniques resemble things you hear in Hasidic nigunim, those spiritual melodies, and in Yiddish folk songs. Gottlieb even wondered if it was maybe a kind of Jewish put-down, playing into stereotypes about rich, older Jewish men with mistresses.
That's a controversial reading.
Right.
So if it wasn't about obvious Jewish content, what could Rogers have possibly meant by Jewish tunes?
Well, our source pushes back on Rogers' idea that just being in a minor key makes something Jewish. Yeah. Minor keys are everywhere in music, right? Jeffrey McGee had another idea. He suggested it might be Porter's mix of major and minor keys, along with chromaticism, using those notes outside the main scale for color. McGee argued that this sound became associated with American Jewish culture, partly through Irving Berlin's popular Jewish novelty songs.
Okay, so maybe a particular musical flavor.
Possibly. But even then, our source concludes that without actual Jewish subject matter or being used in a specifically Jewish theatrical context, just calling that musical mix Jewish feels like a stretch.
So, maybe Porter was just joking with Rogers after all, or winding him up.
That's one possibility. Or maybe, as Charles Schwartz suggested, the comment wasn't a joke but had a bit of an edge to it.
How so?
Schwartz wondered if it reflected some resentment, maybe tapping into those unfortunate stereotypes about Jewish people supposedly dominating Broadway and entertainment. Perhaps a feeling from Porter, subconscious or not, that he was being excluded because he wasn't Jewish. Schwartz even mentioned possible undercurrents of anti-Semitism.
That's a darker interpretation. So if it wasn't directly Jewishness in the music, what else might have influenced Porter in that Broadway environment? What was swirling around?
Well, the source brings up the huge, undeniable influence of Yiddish theater on Broadway musicals in general.
Right, which was massive in New York.
Absolutely. It was the main entertainment for Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe.
Oh.
And it was incredibly musical. The scores were these amazing hybrids of folk music, religious chants, operetta, and the latest American popular songs. Super eclectic.
And lots of major Broadway figures came out of that world or were influenced by it.
Exactly. People like George and Ira Gershwin, Yip Harburg, they were deeply connected to it.
So this mixing of different styles, this hybridity that was already happening in Yiddish theater, and it bled into Broadway and Tin Pan Alley.
Precisely. There's another great anecdote in our source. Oscar Hammerstein II was talking to Jerome Kern about writing music for a show about Marco Polo. Hammerstein says, essentially, okay, it's set in China, about an Italian, told by an Irishman. What kind of music are you going to write?
Yeah, good question.
And Kern supposedly just replied, it'd be good Jewish music.
Wow. Okay, so Jewish music in that context didn't literally mean religious music or folk songs.
It seems like for Kern, and maybe for Porter and others on Broadway then, Jewish music could be shorthand for this very sophisticated, self-aware way of blending musical elements from all over the place, this assimilation of different cultural styles into a new American whole.
Which brings us back to Porter. He described himself once in a funny way, didn't he? Something about Eddie Cantor.
Yeah, he told a journalist he saw himself as a cross between Eddie Cantor and the Duke of Windsor.
Cantor, the popular Jewish vaudeville star, and the Duke of Windsor, the epitome of British aristocracy.
Right. Merging lowbrow and highbrow, Jewish comedy and high society sophistication. It's fascinating self-positioning.
So maybe his Jewish tunes comment wasn't about ethnicity or religion at all.
Perhaps not directly. Our source suggests that while actual Jewish composers like Irving Berlin often wrote about very mainstream white Christian themes like Christmas or Easter to kind of emphasize their assimilation into America.
Porter didn't need to do that.
Right. He was already the definition of waspy, privileged, white, wealthy Protestant. He didn't need to prove he belonged in the mainstream that way. But as a gay man living a very public life, albeit with a carefully constructed image, he certainly knew what it felt like to be an outsider in other ways. He built this whole heteronormative persona, married a woman, wrote endlessly about heterosexual love and desire.
Yeah.
So maybe, just maybe, that joking comment to Rogers about writing Jewish songs, maybe it was ultimately a kind of metaphor, a metaphor for his own complex journey, trying to find his place, not just among the Broadway greats, but within the broader American social landscape itself, navigating his own hidden identities.
That makes a lot of sense. It reframes the whole thing. So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive today? It feels like Porter's music is even more complex than it seems on the surface.
Definitely. I think what our source material really highlights is how Porter and the people who interpreted his work later managed to fuse those standard Tin Pan Alley sounds with elements from all these different musical others.
Yep.
And the goal wasn't necessarily, perfect ethnographic representation and maybe not always just repeating stereotypes, though that could be part of it sometimes.
Right.
But fundamentally, it seems like it was about expressing something deeper, that mystery inside us, that indefinable thing we call love, or that intense passion you feel when you meet someone who feels like you're missing piece.
It's amazing, isn't it, how looking outward, using these exotic sounds and mixing styles, could actually lead to these really introspective statements about human emotion.
Exactly. He looked outward, borrowed from everywhere, but ultimately the focus turned inward, to the power, the complexity, the purity of feelings.
So here's something maybe for you, our listeners, to think about, based on everything we've discussed.
Yeah, consider this. How might Cole Porter's own experiences, perhaps feeling like an outsider himself in certain ways, have actually fueled his genius? How might it have shaped his unique ability to create music that allowed performers, and by extension all of us listening, to express those really profound, sometimes hidden parts of who we are?
That's a powerful thought to leave with. We really hope this exploration of Cole Porter's use of the exotic and that whole fascinating Jewish tunes conversation has given you a fresh angle on his incredible work and legacy.
Yeah, there's always more to uncover with Porter.
Absolutely. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep exploring.